What's up, everyone? Welcome to the next lesson. We've done with the basics and we've introduced the idea of creative upscalers last time. Today, we are sharing a few golden nuggets of knowledge when working with them, some general tips, tricks, and best practices. We've packed all our tests in this lesson, so you'll know exactly what works and what doesn't when it comes to working with them. We are going a bit deeper this time, so without further ado, let's get at it. First off, we have a really cool animation to show you how the creativity works in general. Even when you're aware of it, how it works, seeing it firsthand is very interesting. Even at zero values, it sneaks some subtle changes, especially in people. When we slide into the more positive values, the realism kicks in. People gain complete realism, and at some point, hallucination starts to appear. That's literally the best. At some point, we have the stable that goes through the woman's head, and the dog turned into some kind of a monster. With the highest values like 9 or 10, the hallucinations go absolutely wild. Floor turns into water, random sludge appears on the countertop. AI in its purest form, you know? And here's a fun twist. Sometimes we might actually want to push the creativity to the max. Later in this training, we will make the upscalers hallucinate something usable. We are going to harness this madness, you know? So keep an open mind. There's a method in this madness, and we will explore it later in future workflows. Moving on, prompts. Not sure if you know this, but even if you don't type any prompt, upscalers create one automatically. They will always create a description of your image, and these prompts are usually long and elaborate. And when you import a full image, you can leave this field empty. That's totally fine. Perhaps sometimes we add things like happy diverse people when working on a commercial image, but yeah, it's fine to leave it empty. Other cool trick is actually using ChatGPT to generate a prompt. You can go to chatgpt.com, upload your image, and ask it to generate a prompt based on your image. You'll get a big description in return, and you can put it back to Magnific or Stable Diffusion or whatever works for you. That seems to be working for many people, even we don't do it personally. By the way, when it goes to prompts in general, for the full image, we leave this field empty most of the time, but we do always put prompts when working on a smaller areas of the image. We did that in the previous lesson when we exported the dog and just focused on him, adding prompts as simple as sitting dog. This will make the dog look a whole lot better, and we'll always use prompts for those smaller regions. We'll use prompts when working on furniture later in this training. For example, we'll export the towel and we'll add prompts to make it more fluffy. So the prompt is just fluffy towel. And in a degree, it will hallucinate it towards the prompt. So it's a very useful tool. So long story short, for smaller areas, prompts are a must. Next up, something that is incredibly powerful, it's so overlooked. We will actually go to Photoshop for this one, but yeah. We are speaking about the option of upscaling 2 times, 4 times, or even 8 times. That's an important tool to keep in mind, so yeah, let's science this one out. Beautiful. We have our exterior scene here, and spoiler alert, we will break down the lighting, color, and post-production later down the road. But for now, we can share some additional knowledge about upscaling, focusing on the upscale scale. So yeah, bear with us for a moment. First thing to keep in mind is that we try to keep our images below 4K or 3K before upscaling. That's the ideal resolution. But in case your images are higher than that, you can always use a little trick. In the previous lesson, we used quick export to export parts of the image. It's a nice and fast option. However, we can also use export as, which is one below. That one offers a lot more options, as you can see here. We can actually choose the resolution we want, we can select different files, JPEGs, PNGs, and we can also use it to save crops of the image, same as the quick export one. This window is incredibly convenient and we'll take advantage of that. So first, our rendering was at 3K, so I'll start saving different renderings, full resolution first. And next up, we will save another one. This time I will lower the resolution by 50%. Sometimes you can go even lower, that's fine. And with these 2 files, we'll do different things, and you'll see in a moment. Okay, now we head over to Magnific to begin the upscaling process, to do some trickery. So first, we do our usual settings. Nothing new. We upload our full resolution, do 2x upscale, select film and photography, leave the prompt empty, and use the standard 3 and -1 settings. This is one of our upscales. And this time, we'll do a second one. And for that one, we upload the half resolution and change some settings. We will increase the scale factor to 4 and perhaps increase the creativity just by 1. We click upscale again and boom. Fast forward to Photoshop and now we bring our upscaled images. At the bottom, we place the full resolution upscale and above it, we layer the half resolution upscale. To keep things organized, we name them accordingly: the fidelity pass for the full resolution and the creativity pass for the 4x upscale. We put black masks and start brushing some details in. We start with the so-called fidelity pass first. As we can see, the geometry of everything holds up perfectly, but we get some additional production value. Subtle enhancements here and there, especially near the bark and plants. We get a bit of that spice, but not too much. However, the things get different when we brush in the creative pass. It's a completely different story. The plants look next level right now. The translucency, the color, everything starts to really pop. The difference is clear. Upscaling at 4x introduces creative variations that weren't there with just a simple 2x upscale. So let's take a moment to recap the fidelity and creativity pass. The idea is pretty simple. The key is to always run your images twice. First, run the full resolution with 2x upscale. This will serve as a fidelity or like a consistency pass. It should preserve the original details with minimal alteration. It's not about creativity, it's about consistency and a subtle quality boost. And secondly, lower your resolution by half and then run it by 4x or even bigger if you like. The second one will keep the consistency less, and that's exactly what we need. It will introduce artistic enhancements, add richness and depth to the scene. It's perfect for any organic substance, plants, trees, landscaping in general, and of course people too. And with these two passes, you have the freedom to blend the best out of two worlds. As simple as that. Really cool feature that changes the way we can give and take control and operate on details in our images. Yeah, so that's that. And by the way, this scale factor thing goes even deeper. A couple of nuggets of knowledge here. So you should always consider both 2x or 4x or even 8x upscales, especially when working with people, while exporting them as a smaller crops. From our experience, if there are people far away in the background and you still want to improve them, upscaling them twice might leave them looking distorted. But when we upscale them by 4x or 8x, they start to look really good. It's again like a hidden feature to make people look better. And moving on, there's a couple of additional things I want to share you. There's another important rule, whether that's Stable Diffusion, Krea or others, be careful of a sneaky trap you might fall into. Don't upscale the images that have been upscaled already. That means don't reuse the upscaled version for another successive upscales. At least try avoiding it. If you run images once and then run it the second time, you might end up with something that has a lot of micro contrast. Some people refer to it as an HDR effect. And if you ever find yourself needed to upscale an image multiple times, there are a few things you can do to minimize the unwanted artifacts. First thing is that this so-called HDR effect is less visible in the newer versions of Magnifique. It's getting better day by day. Hopefully, at some point, we don't need to care about it. Another thing is that if you want to get rid of it, try decreasing the resemblance setting. In other softwares, it might be called a different way, like structure, but in general, you cannot rely on it. You might get lucky sometimes, but yeah. And last thing, always ask yourself why this micro contrast might happen. Take a step back and look at your original image. If it already has a lot of sharpness, clarity, and materials pop, you're more likely to run into issues. But don't worry, we'll cover the shading, lighting for the purpose of AI later on. So yeah, in general, always at least try to use raw renderings as an input for creative upscalers. Anyway, that's that. We are almost done. The last thing to consider is choosing the model. We usually stick with film and photography to make it feel like a photograph, as the name suggests, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't experiment with different models. For example, when you're dealing with aerial images, you can actually test different models. Apart from film and photography, there's one called nature, and it might produce better results. But here, if you go with nature, it will kind of try to seek nature everywhere, to even hallucinate people into branches and something like this. But with large areas of terrain, this can actually be beneficial to get that organic, natural substance you can always mask out if you don't need. Experiment with different models and see what comes. It's worth exploring for sure. Alright, we are bringing this lesson home, but before we wrap up, we want to touch base on the issues of consistency. The question is, are we losing control when working with those upscalers? Isn't it like a gamble? And what happens if we have multiple cameras from the same place? Are the results all over the place? Well, not necessarily. The thing is that the better your 3D output is, the more consistent results you'll get. If you put less effort in 3D, sure, the output might vary, but it won't be like night and day. And by the end of the day, it's your call to decide how far to push in 3D and where AI can step in. And let's be honest, upscalers save a ton of time, and we use AI in parts of the image that aren't the main focus of renderings. Clients care about their product, and yes, that's where your focus should be. For everything else, it opens the doors to use half measures for AI to work with. So we really need to obsess over every plant or leaf or stain details. Actually, I haven't had a single case where upscaling was off limits because of slight inconsistencies. Great, the technical part is done. Next lesson is more visual. We'll show you exactly where those upscalers are good at and where they are not working at all. And spoiler alert, they don't work every time. So yeah, thanks for this lesson and see you in the next one.